We are going to do another read aloud from Roald Dahl's The BFG. Remember, Roald Dahl is the author. He wrote the words to the story. The BFG stands for the big, B for big, friendly, F for friendly, giant, G for giant, J. The big, friendly giant. In this read aloud, we're going to do one chapter. It's called Snozcumbers. I have never heard of anything called a schnozcumber before. Have you? I wonder what a schnozcumber might be. I'm looking at this illustration to see if it gives me a clue to what a schnozcumber is. What I've noticed is there's the big friendly giant, the BFG, and I see his ginormous ears. We learned earlier that he uses those to hear things like dreams. And way down here in the corner is Sophie. She looks so tiny because she's next to the BFG, who is very big. And the BFG is holding something in his hand. I wonder what that might be. Let's read this chapter and find out. But if you don't eat people like all the others, Sophie said, then what do you live on? That is a squelch-sticky problem around here, the BFG answered. In this slosh-funkling giant country, happy eats like pineapples and pigwinkles is simply not growing. Nothing is growing except for one extremely icky poo vegetable. It's called a schnozcumber. The schnozcumber? Cried Sophie. There's no such thing. The BFG looked at Sophie and smiled, showing about 20 of his square white teeth. Yesterday, he said, we was not believing in giants, was we? Today we is not believing in schnozcumbers. Just because we happen not to have actually seen something with our own two little winkles, we think it's not existing. What about, for instance, the great squizzly Scotch hopper? I beg your pardon, Sophie said. And the humplecrimp. What's that? And the rapscapple. The what? Sophie said. And the crumbscottle. Are they animals? Sophie asked. They is common animals, the BFG said contemptuously. I is not a very know-all giant myself, but it seems to me that you is an absolute know-nothing human being. Your brains is full of rotten wool. You mean cotton wool, Sophie said. What I mean and what I say is two different things, the BFG announced rather grandly. I will now show you a schnozcumber. The BFG flung open his massive cupboard and took out the weirdest looking thing Sophie had ever seen. It was about half as long again as an ordinary man, but was much thicker. It was as thick around as its girth as a perambulator. It was black and white stripes along its length, and it was covered all over with coarse knobbles. Oh, wow. So this picture, it might be hard to tell because the illustrator drew it in black and white. And so we usually see something that might be like a cucumber with green. But the author's telling us that this schnozcumber is black and white striped. Like my shirt I'm wearing. I don't know if that looks maybe like a food I've never had before. It might be interesting to try it for the first time. Here is the rumpsolent schnozcumber, cried the BFG, waving it around. I squoggled it, I mispissed it, I dispung it. But because it's refusing to gobble up human beings like the other giants, I must spend my life guzzling up icky poo schnozcumbers instead. If I don't, I will be nothing but skin and bones. You mean skin and bones, Sophie said. I know it's bones, said the BFG, but please understand that I cannot be helping it if sometimes I say things a little squiggly. I is trying my very best all the time. The big friendly giant looked suddenly so forlorn that Sophie got quite upset. Being forlorn is kind of like another word for sad. I'm sorry, said Sophie. I didn't mean to be rude. There is never any schools to teach me talking in giant country, the BFG said sadly. But couldn't your mother have taught you? Sophie asked. My mother? Cried the BFG. Giants don't have mothers. Surely you was knowing that. I did not know that, Sophie said. Whoever heard of a woman giant? Shouted the BFG, waving the schnauzcumber around his head like a lasso. He was waving it around like this. Wah! There never was a woman giant, and there never will be one. Giants is always men. Sophie felt herself getting a little muddled. In that case, she said, how were you born? Giants isn't born, the BFG answered. Giants appear, and that's all there is to it. They simply appears, the same way the sun and the stars. And when did you appear? Sophie asked. Now, how on earth could I be knowing a thing like that? Said the BFG. It was so long ago I couldn't count. You mean you don't know even how old you are? No giant is knowing that, the BFG said. All I is knowing about myself is that I is very old, very, very old and crumply, perhaps as old as the earth. What happens when a giant dies? Sophie asked. Giants is never dying, the BFG answered. Sometimes and quite suddenly, a giant is disappearing, and nobody is ever knowing where he goes. But mostly us giants is simply going on and on like a whistly time twiddler. The BFG was still holding that awesome schnauzcumber in his right hand, and now he put it on the end. He put one end into his mouth and bit off a huge hunk of it. He started crunching it up, and the noise he made was like the crunching of lumps of ice. It's filthy, he sputtered, speaking with his mouth full and spraying large pieces of schnauzcumber like bullets in Sophie's direction. Sophie hopped around on the tabletop, ducking out of the way. It's disgusterous, the BFG gurgled. It's sickable, it's rotsome, it's megashwise. Try it yourself, this foulsome schnauzcumber. No, thank you, Sophie said, backing away. It's all you're going to be guzzling around here from now on, so you might as well get used to it, said the BFG. Go on, you snipsy little winkle. Have a go. Sophie took a small nibble. Ugh, she sputtered. Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Oh, help. She spat it out quickly. It tastes like frog skins, she gasped, and rotten fish. Worse than that, cried the BFG, roaring with laughter. To me it is tasting of cloak coaches and slime wagglers. Ooh, look at that picture. The illustrator drew the BFG spitting out the schnauzcumber. Oh, he looks like he really does not like it. Do you really have to eat it? Sophie said. You do, unless you is wanting to become as so thin you will be disappearing into thick air. Into thin air, Sophie said. A thick ear is something quite different. Once again, that sad, winsome look came into the BFG's eyes. Words, he said, is such a twickling problem for me all my life. So you must simply try to be patient and stop squibbling. As I am telling you before, I know exactly the words I am wanting to say, but somehow or the other, they is always getting squiddled around. That happens to everyone, Sophie said. Not like it happens to me, the BFG said. I is speaking the most terrible Winglish. I think you speak beautifully, Sophie said. You do? Cried the BFG, suddenly brightening. You really do? Simply beautifully, Sophie repeated. Well, that is the nicest present anyone has ever been giving me in my whole life, cried the BFG. Are you sure you was not twiddling my leg? Of course not, Sophie said. I just love the way you talk. Let's see, I think there's one more illustration on this page. He's starting to look much happier. And it looks like there's the schnozcumber that got a bite taken out of it. How wondercome, cried the BFG, still beaming. How whoopsie spunklers, how absolutely squiffling. Is all of a stutter. Listen, Sophie said, we don't have to eat schnozcumbers. In the fields around our village, there's all sorts of lovely vegetables like cauliflower and carrots. Why don't you get some of those next time you go to visit? The BFG raised his great head proudly in the air. I is a very honorable giant, he said. I would rather be chewing on rotten schnozcumber than snitching things from other people. You stole me, Sophie said. I did not steal you very much, said the BFG, smiling gently. After all, you was only a tiny little girl. All right, that's the end of this chapter. The next chapter we're going to read is called The Blood Blotter. I wonder what that's going to be about. All right, I'll see you on the next one.